Hey guys, thanks for joining me for another video. In today's video, I just want to go over the plus and minuses opposed to blankets or sleeping bags. You know, which one's better? A sleeping bag or a blanket? Coming up. Hope you guys all stay with me. Okay guys, you guys have seen in probably quite a few of my videos, I tend to like wool blankets, so I might be a little bit biased in this. When I was growing up, me and my dad would go camping and we'd go camping with friends or whatever, I would always take a blanket. Most time a wool blanket or some other kind of blanket. My dad's like, why don't you just get a sleeping bag? I said, I don't like sleeping bags. Maybe it's just because I wanted to be like the people a long time ago and, you know, sleep in a wool blanket like the cowboys used to do. But I like wool blankets. And I never could really get away from that. And I think the reason being is wool blankets are extremely versatile. You can use a wool blanket for almost anything. I mean, I can take a wool blanket, and if I had to, I could make a pair of pants out of it while I was back in there. Might be crude pants, but I could make a pair of pants. A sleeping bag is pretty much only a sleeping bag. I like my sleeping bag that I have. It's nothing fancy. There's a lot nicer and better quality sleeping bags than the one that I have, but it works. It works very well. I actually modified it a few years ago, which I would never do again. I switched it from a typical, I guess, polyester stuffing to a down bag, but it's a very inexpensive bag. But it's very warm, it's very comfortable, and it does the job. I will say that if you're going to take a sleeping bag and you're going for distance, you're backpacking and you're just trying to see how far you can get every day. You are not concerned with anything but just seeing how many miles you can make. I'm not sure if I would use a wool blanket in that case. I might still. It would depend on some of my other gear. But a sleeping bag is very warm. You know, a mummy bag's even better because then you can pull it up there close to your eyes, and in really cold temperatures, you really need to have every bit of you covered. So that is one advantage of a wool or a sleeping bag. They do pack nice, and some of the newer ones, I mean, good grief, they almost don't take up any room and they light as a feather. So that would be some of the pluses of sleeping bags. I'm sure I missed some, so you guys can leave it down in the comments. Blow it up down there if you guys are a big sleeping bag fan. So that's sleeping bags. If you get a good stuff sack, that makes a big difference. Now, there are more than just wool blankets. There's also like, this is like I think it's made out of nylon or polyester. But it's like, you know, one of those fluffy blankets a lot of times they used to have in old hotel rooms and stuff. And these work really good too. They're very inexpensive. I think I paid like, this is like a king size, and I think I only paid like 30 bucks for it. Maybe 40 bucks. But I've had this thing for 15 years. And, you know, it's gotten some holes in it by being a little bit too close to the fire a few times. But it's a good blanket. And I don't care about it. If I have a $500 sleeping bag, I am not going to sleep right next to the fire. I'm going to ruin my sleeping bag, at least me. This, if I get a couple holes in it, the first time I took it out, I think I got a hole in it. Yeah, I was a little bit bummed. I think there might be some wildlife spying on me. I might have gotten a hole in it, and I was a little bit bummed then. If you guys see me get mauled by a bear, please subscribe. I might have gotten a hole in it the first time I was using it, but it was a little bit upsetting then, but after that, it really wasn't that big a deal. So, that's one thing. You know, it doesn't have to be a wool blanket. There are advantages to wool blankets, in my opinion. These do pack down a little bit smaller, and they're a little bit lighter. But a wool blanket, the other thing is if you properly treat a wool blanket, it can actually be waterproof. You can actually stick this thing down in a bucket of water, pull it out, and all the water would just run off of it. At some point, I really got to show you guys that in an upcoming video.
because it is really cool. I've done that to other wool clothing that I've had. It is a treatment that you have to regularly keep up with. Like, you know, if you use it for a year or something, you're gonna have to do it a couple times a year. And it's a few dollars to do it. But it works great. I mean, it's really nice. So that's one thing about wool blankets, but you can use a wool blanket for so much. You can use it as a windbreak. When you know you have a fire right here and it's really windy, you can use your sleeping bag as a windbreak. You can use this as a poncho if it's really cold. You guys have seen me, you know, this right here. I can be, oh, I'm sitting by the fire, oh, nice and warm. It can turn into a coat. It can turn into like a, no, it's not a hood, what is it? Like a cape, you know, with the hood and everything. It might look a little bit like Frodo Baggins, but they have so many uses. They will almost not wear out. They'll last pretty much forever. They're fairly inexpensive. You can get them on Amazon. I think this one was about 20 bucks. And they're very, very warm. I mean, I've slept out in sub-zero temperatures with 2 wool blankets. And like my total weight for like sleeping gear was like 5 pounds. And you could probably find a sleeping bag that would weigh less than that would go down that cold. I was not by the fire either, and I was as snug as a bug in a rug. But wool blankets, in my opinion, I really think they're probably one of the best things you can use. And one thing I do like about wool, opposed to nylon or polyester or something like that, like the fleece blankets, this, if a coal jumps on this from the fire, you can brush it off. For the most part, it really doesn't do much of anything. It just goes out. It doesn't melt a hole through it like it does with this material. So that is one big advantage in my book. Some of the disadvantages is it does get wet and you don't have any kind of treatment on it. It's really wet for a while and it takes a little while for it to dry. So that is a disadvantage. It does keep you warm even when it's wet. And some of the down bags, I think they have some kind of a man-made polymer fabric stuff that you can fill your bags with that'll actually keep them warm even when they're wet. But just like regular goose down, if it gets wet, it's just kind of a soppy mess. So that's one thing I'd, caution you on. But that's my opinion of wool blankets. You guys tell me down in the comments what you think this is good or bad. Come on, tell me what you think. I mean, and the other thing is, if you haven't tried a wool blanket, go buy one and try it. I really like them. In the wintertime, I almost will not go to the mountains without one. Wool blanket and an axe. That's one thing I got from Survivor Man that I have looked into and I've tried it, and he's got a lot of good information about that. A wool blanket and an axe, I think, is a big thing to carry in the wintertime. So that's my opinion. It might be a little bit biased, but tell me what you guys think down in the comments. If you guys all enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up. And all you new watchers, please click that subscribe button. Thanks, guys. See ya.